Hi everyone. Once you have done your data collection and presented your data analysis, your work will be judged based on something called evidentiary inadequacy. What does that mean? That means that your work will be judged if your work can back the claims it does based on the data collection and analysis. So, your data collection, analysis, and the interpretation of your data will be judged by the examiners or the reviewers. Now, how do they judge it? They judge it based on 5 types of evidentiary inadequacy, which is described below. So, let's get to know what they are. The first one is inadequate evidence or inadequate amount of evidence, where you as the researcher has too little evidence to warrant certain key assumptions or assertions. Alright, so the evidence that you have presented towards your findings or towards your discussion or towards the implications of your research are not enough to convince the readers or the examiners. The next one is, of course, inadequate variety in kinds of evidence. That means the researcher has failed to have evidence across a range of different sources. Alright, and I'll give you some example of what those sources could be. So what does that mean? That could be that maybe you employed only one kind of source. So whereas you could have employed maybe direct observations, interviewing, site documents, and this is again you have provided inadequate types of evidence to warrant key assertions through something called triangulation, which I have explained before. So triangulation is when you use different forms of evidence, and it could be, so I have already mentioned interviews, but let's say interviews through focus groups or one-on-one interviews, right? It could be a qualitative survey questionnaire or survey. So if you use different kinds of evidence to back your claims, then it will not be inadequate. But if you do not, if you use only one or two types to back claims, then it may be frowned upon by the examiners or reviewers, especially depending on the kind of assertion you have made about your data. The third kind of evidentiary inadequacy could be faulty interpretive status of evidence. What does this mean? This means that the researcher has failed to have understood the key aspects of the complexity, right, of action or of the meaning perspectives held by your research participants in the setting due to inadequate time. You have not spent enough time in the field or interviewing that was not intensive enough. So you didn't go into the depths, did not go into the depths of the issue. You just touched the surface, which was not enough for the claims that you have made. If you have touched the surface, then the claims should also be on a surface level. You have to accept it then. Number 4 is inadequate disconfirming evidence. What does this mean? This means that the researcher now lacks data that might disconfirm a key assertion, alright, and lacks evidence that a deliberate search was made for potentially disconfirming data, which has led to the critique that the researcher only looked for evidence to support his or her own interpretation. So it was kind of a biased form of data collection. So you only looked at data that supported your work, but did kind of ignored data that did not support your work. You should have presented that as well, or did not support your argument. So you should have presented that as well, because that is what is called fair research. If you have evidence or data that goes against your beliefs and assertions, then you must present that as well. Final judgment criteria is inadequate discrepant case analysis. What does this mean? This means that the researcher did not scrutinize, did not investigate, did not go into the depths the set of disconfirming instances. All right, let me give you an example. All right, examining each instance and comparing it with the conforming instances to determine which features of the disconfirming case were the same as or different from the analogous features of the conforming cases. Such comparative feature analysis often reveals flaw in the original assertion. So you have to confirm, you have to compare and analyze. All right, your beliefs, your assertions, and otherwise. All right, and then find similarities, dissimilarities, etc. All right, so let me give you an example as promised. Now, if you believe that a certain learning technique leads to improvement in student scores, right? Now, if you only present the student scores where the learning technique led to the improvement, that's kind of a biased research. You did not compare and analyze. You should also look into the students where the learning technique led to the downfall in the results and why it did. So do an investigation there, not only for the students, because you don't want to just present the data which supports your beliefs or your arguments. You should also present the data which does not support, and then go into it, investigate, and find out why it did not, even if it goes against your beliefs or systems or arguments. So these are the 5 kinds of evidentiary inadequacy which may lead to trouble when your research or your journal paper is being examined or reviewed by examiners and reviewers. So make sure that this kind of inadequacy does not come up in your research. If it does, you must acknowledge it, you must accept it, acknowledge it as a limitation, but also explain why this has occurred or why you could not avoid it. Simply acknowledging it and accepting it will not be enough for the examiners. They will consider it to be a big limitation, especially if it's a thesis and a research report that you are presenting. All right, so guys, if you have any questions, feel free to write in the comment section, and I will see you soon with my next video. I try to make videos on different kind of topics that will help you writing your research, presenting your research, collecting data, qualitative, quantitative, ethics issue, designing research. So let me know how you are going with learning through my videos. Bye for now.